So it fits in that slot. Why is it so slow? We're going to talk about it. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is that says Serial ATA right there underneath my finger. Now that stands for Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, or the little SATA cables that go on the back of your hard drives, disk drives, whatever. That this uses the same protocol. This uses the same setup as this. So even though it fits in that NVMe slot, it still operates on the same speed that your other, say, SSDs or whatever would do. It can only transfer data so quickly. Now you'll find hard drives, spinning platter drives, and all that will operate they will operate slower than that. But your regular SATA drives, your SSDs and all, they can only go so fast on that bus speed, and that's what this is too. You can tell that because it has two little notches right there. NVMe drives, or non-volatile memory express, or I think it's something like that. Those fit in the same slot, but they have one little notch, and they're actually operating on the same PCIe bus that your video card operates off. So let's do a little bit of comparison. Let's try to explain what that means. We're going to compare this to loading an airplane. The other NVMe, the one with one notch that operates on the same speed as the information shared by your video card, we're going to load that like a roller coaster. So in serial, you're loading one item at a time. So that means everybody goes into the front of the plane, they go in through the same doorway, then they go back into the plane and they load. So you got, say, 40 people in a small to mid-sized aircraft. They're all going to come in that front door and they're going to load, and it's going to take a few minutes to load that airplane. However, if you're on a roller coaster, especially a popular one, if you get to the end of the line there, we say all that information is coming up the ramp to get to the roller coaster in the loading area. That loading area, a lot of times, say it has 10 or 12 cars. Well, you've got 10 or 12 little lanes. So all those people will stay in those lanes waiting for that car to stop. And when it stops, everybody goes in at one time. So now you've loaded a roller coaster, boom, all of a sudden you've got, say, 30 people or whatever that are loaded in that roller coaster in like a fraction of the time it took those same number of people to load into an airplane. You're still loading people, you're still loading them into seats, but you've done it in a different way. And parallel, which would be the roller coaster, is more efficient because that means you can send several pieces of information across at the same time to be processed. Serial is one piece at a time, one bit at a time gets sent, and that's how this is. So it's a different protocol, a different way of doing things, even though they look similar. And even though they will fit in the same slot sometimes, incidentally, it will not work. It will fit, but it will not work in the PCIe adapter that I had for the NVMe drive. This specifically says NVMe, and it will not operate on the older protocol. So why do I mention this at all? What's the big deal? First of all, I found this in an old yoga notebook. It wasn't that old, but it was old enough. It was a little 2-in-1 notebook. And it happened to have this in here. It's 128 gig. It was used as the boot drive. Don't get me wrong. I still use boot drives, as regular SSDs as boot drives, and they're plenty fast enough. But when I'm trying to transfer information, like the video that I'm editing, or if I'm doing 3D modeling, or if I'm doing whatever the case may be, and I need something much faster, then I'm going to rely more on an NVMe drive, or maybe loading games or something like that. The NVMe drive is going to load and it's going to transfer data much, much faster than this ever could. The reason why I mention this is because these are still readily available. And it's not just in 128 gig like this one is. You can get these in 256, 512, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, and they're fairly competitive priced. A lot of times you'll find them a little bit cheaper. Now you'll find the regular 2.5-inch SSDs much cheaper. But for something that fits in a slot, they're competitively priced. Let's just put it that way, which can be confusing if you buy the wrong type of drive. Because these still have the same capacities as NVMe drives, and because they're still available, and because the price, you might look at it and go, oh, that's a great deal on that, you might end up buying something that when you change it out with a different drive, you're going to think, oh, that's faster, and not paying any attention to it, but then realize that it's not as fast as you thought it was, or as efficient as you thought it was. And that's because it might have ended up being a serial SATA, or a SATA, some people will call it, and not an NVMe. So is a little bit of a difference there. They both typically will fit in the same slot because you don't have the other way around. These are two notches. The NVMe is a single notch. The M.2 slot only has one notch or one part that indent, so you can easily fit this into the same slot. However, unless your BIOS is set up for it, unless your motherboard is looking for the possibility that it could have either one of these, you won't be able to tell. You won't know. And when you do that, you're going to get a much slower speed. Sometimes this will top out in the neighborhood of a regular SSD is probably about 500 megabits per second. Pretty typical. And I'll go ahead and show you a comparison between this and a regular 2.5-inch Samsung. So you can see that they're pretty close to the same. They're almost identical. Compare that to, say, a Gen 3 PCIe Gen 3 NVMe drive, which will get about 3,500 to 5,000 megabits per second. Could be a very big difference. You're talking about, on a typical Gen 3, about 3,500 as opposed to 500. So 7 times more information can flow in that same amount of time. 7 times as many people loading into that roller coaster as there are that plane right now. So that's a big difference. And if you're paying the same price, wouldn't you rather load the roller coaster? Just saying. Anyway, I thought I would just kind of share that because I came across one and I couldn't get the laptop to work, but I did see that it was a SATA drive, and I thought, you know what? There's a big difference there. And even though it will fit in that M.2 slot, it won't give you the same performance. So just kind of letting you know. Don't waste your money. And now if you can find a great deal and that's what you want, then buy it all day long. But if it's going to cost you the same thing to get that, or maybe the same amount or $1 or $2 more to get the NVMe drive, I would go with the faster drive. That's just me. Anyway, I hope you found it helpful in some way. If you like the video, go ahead and throw a like on it. Don't forget to hit me on the other socials, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will probably go into a little bit more detail or mention a few other things on ThatPaulGuy.tech in the blog section. For if you're looking for a non-tech type blog, that's going to be on buymeacoffee.com. And if you don't do anything else or hit any of the other socials or anything like that, just ask you to do one thing for me, and that's just be nice to each other. Be kind. It goes a long way. Smile, say good morning, hold the door open, just nod, wave, something, acknowledge somebody. You could go from having somebody that has a horrible day to having an okay day, or somebody that's having a pretty okay day to having a really good day, just because you did something kind. So you never know. You have no idea what influence you can have on somebody's day. Anyway, that's all I got for right now. I'm working on the white case that's above my left shoulder there. We're still working on making that my server. I'm in between. I really got to figure out I got to poop or get off the pot with that one. And then we're going to go ahead and play around with the Xeon that's over there, and that's in the pink case. We're going to play around with it a little bit more, but not for a few minutes. I got some other stuff I'm going to do. Anyway, until I get myself into more trouble than I need to be getting into, you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later.